Hey everyone, welcome. We got a new patch. They announced a new patch, I guess like a week ago, maybe. Yeah, that sounds right. Maybe more than a week ago, actually. And then they announced another patch for that patch. They've actually revised the patch, which I was not expecting whatsoever, especially so quickly, especially after the last one did not get any updates. I advise people to basically go with if you don't expect anything, you can't be disappointed. So I was thinking there'd be no fixes or anything. And instead, they surprised me with a patch update yesterday, October 31st. And that's a really good sign. Not just for actually for the Balance Council whole discussion and balance in general, but just for me, this must be one of the fastest responses. So they're clearly listening, first of all, but then I don't think they weren't not listening. I think it was just more of a matter of manpower. And two things could happen. Either they have more reason to allocate resources to this endeavor, or there's nothing else going on. And this is the only thing they're working on. So one could be really good, and the other one could be a bad sign. But let's just pick the good one and go with it. So awesome to see that they're updating very quickly, and people are already playing on the new patch. So the battery overcharge removal is going to stay in effect, and instead, it seems kind of weird because they're talking about battery overcharge removal. They're saying, okay, we're going to keep it. Here's what we're going to do to compensate for no longer having that. So the Cyclone's in here rather than it being like a full Protoss lineup of changes. So Cyclone changes are reverted. So if I understand correctly, this is like a year ago reverting. This is when I was very frustrated with the patch and its goals and the Balance Council before I just gave up and let things happen. But seriously, this was when everything changed over to the reactored Cyclones. Now they're back to the Tech Lab Cyclones. And I think that's a good maneuver. You know, I don't think you have to be too bright to understand my position on this one, considering how many videos and how often I complained about the new Cyclone. So I'm glad it's back to the old Cyclone. And the biggest reason, I think, is that a lot of people were pointing out that it reduced Protoss build diversity in the early game. It also affected the early game versus Zerg, so I think we'll see something change a little bit there as well, just as far as those early game all-ins might have a little more viability once again. But, yeah. We think reverting to the old Cyclone, requested from major part of the community, will help Protoss early game. And I think that's correct. I think it's a good attempt, you know? Again, when it comes to patches, you don't know what the hell is going to happen, good or bad, really, because, you know, even if you try to isolate everything, it's not an isolated issue, but I do think that's a good start. Stalker, the gateway train time is reduced by 3 seconds. So if I understand correctly, they are specifying gateway, not warp gate. So this is the first 3 units that you get if you're just doing a regular opener, I suppose. If you're proxy gating, then it's even better for you. Which were difficult to defend, even with a battery overcharge. The 2 Barracks Marauder is the proxy they're talking about. That's difficult. Hopefully, if Protoss get 2 Barracks Maraudered, they can get Stalkers faster. And they'll have the energy recharge to at least recharge the energy on a shield battery. They won't have the overcharge, but they can recharge it. And so they think that's going to help out in the early game. As far as I understand from the playtesting of the patch, early game actually has not been so dire as people were expecting, myself included, for Protoss. Professional Protosses are actually using the recharge ability really well. I still think there is going to be difficulties and frustration from the lower leagues who can't use recharge as accurately. But then again, basically anywhere in the lower leagues, if you're facing some perfected proxy cheese, they just practice this build 5 minutes, every single time, you're going to have difficulty no matter what. So only so much you can do about that. But for the professional side of things, seems like it's working out. The Ghost supply was increased from 2 to 3. Now, this is very interesting because actually someone was able to post some Korean players' thoughts on this. So let's go into the developer comment before we move into that. But the release of PTR, additional feedback from pro gamers and community, Ghost power level seems too high. And following that feedback, We would like to directly adjust the Terran army's late game strength through this change. So obviously this won't change very much on your first like 3 ghosts, for instance, but it's going to change how many ghosts you can actually have, or how many other things with the ghost you can have. So this is going to target all the matchups, well, not TBT, but all the rest of the matchups. And I thought that was exactly in line with what people wanted. They wanted something that is a change that seems like a decent amount, and a supply increase seems to have met a lot of people's expectations. So most people seemed happy with it, but like I was saying, apparently Crank, who was a former professional Protoss, and he's been casting StarCraft 2 since he stopped being a pro gamer. He actually was talking about how he thought that the Ghost was an excessive nerf, and I think there were some other... Oh, yeah, he mentioned Rogue. There we go. Called Rogue, asked him about it. Rogue said if Ghost is nerfed, it's good for him, but the current Ghost is overly nerfed, so it's less thrilling. So Rogue agreed. Down in the comments, someone, the OP mentioned that Ryung has stated he doesn't really interact with the Balance Council because they ignore his ideas. And there's definitely been rumors, at the very least, that the Korean side of pro gamers do not get much of a say when it comes to this Balance Council, which is unfortunate but not necessarily surprising, as translation issues do exist, and having like a Korean translator on staff 24/7 is just weird. And I mean, not even besides that, even the time zone issues, right? Again, typically in these big group projects, whoever speaks the most is going to get heard to the most. And if the person they're speaking to in the same language is also in their same region, you get where I'm going. The Koreans don't get as much of a say. So finally, at least Crank, who does also sometimes stream in English as well, said that he doesn't like the ghost supply increase. Rogue doesn't, I guess he didn't say he didn't like it, but he says that it could be too much. And Ryung is just like hands off, like I don't know what they're going to do, but I don't know about this one. So that's interesting. Because I also would have said that this is a good start, I don't think it's a drastic change, but considering that the thing that people have the most problem with are mass ghosts, an attempt to make it 10 ghosts instead of 15, I think is a good step. Mothership no longer be abducted. Now, this is funny. This brought Grubby out of the woods for a StarCraft 2 tweet. So he still watches and pays attention. But yeah, he tweeted and said this is, 8 years too late or something? People have been asking us for a long time, and I could have sworn it even was an effect. I think it might have been during another patch test. That might be what I'm thinking of. Or, an expansion beta. I don't remember, but I feel like there was a time where this actually was a thing, and in that brief amount of time, a lot of the Zerg players had a lot of complaints about this. Now, this might have been back when PvZ late game was just the same thing all the time, every game. I'm talking like all the Scarlet Neeb games in the world, BlizzCon, Neeb versus Rogue, the Fist of Neeb. I'm talking like this was when it was the only thing that was done, it felt like. So that was pretty annoying, but it was also difficult to balance because it did feel like once you just kind of tipped it a little this way, little that way, it just completely flipped over. So I don't know, years and years later, trying it again, if I even remember correctly, again, maybe it was a patch attempt and then they reverted it. Maybe I'm making it up. But it's I think is a good start because now that we can have more faith in patches being improved, revised, I think we can actually start approaching this with that mentality of it's a good start and let's see what happens as it continues. If, in the week long, they're going to give this attempt. If this gets really big problems, then maybe they can change it. I guess maybe I'm confusing with untargetable but neural parasite, but I don't think so, man. I really feel like there is an attempt to have this happen. Anyway, I like to see it. I like to think that that's also a response to the community. This has been the most commonly suggested solution for a very long time. Ultralisk, it's anabolic synthesis bonus move speed. So that's the ultra speed upgrade that they gave however many years ago. So reduction of move speed on Ultras. So it's the same move speed as Stim Marine Marauders now. Instead of, I guess it was a little bit faster. I mean, honestly, if I'm trying to cut away from Ultras, I'm basically already dead. That makes sense because they're also getting the push buff. I mean, I have to imagine that's only ever a buff. So I do think the buff of their pushing away units should be matched with some type of nerf. I'm not sure this will actually make it to do this goal. Try and make Terran players feel more comfortable moving out in the map in late game. I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but having it be the same speed as opposed to a little bit faster should certainly make an impact in the higher leagues. Remove changes. Broodlord changes are removed, including the bug fix, I believe. Tempest damage point change removed. That's again what makes them more microable, so you can move and shoot easier, so that's no longer buffed. And the Liberator changes were completely removed, so just get rid of the whole idea. Just scrap everything, which I think is the right go-to. As I was saying, I actually think the Liberator is like an okay position right now. I think it is frustrating when 5 Liberators siege up on every single Zerg base in a 30-minute game, and it takes a lot more effort for the Zerg player to deal with that than the Terran to do it when they have +2 range. But I did not think that the updates were the right direction. So just toss it aside and work on it later, I think. With Ghost being weakened as well, I no longer believe that Broodlord changed their need to adjust the level of its power. Yeah, I've seen some arguments about this. Broodlords, as I said in my previous read of the previous patch, they're a unit that is probably going to have to really be totally revised, not just a little bit of touching here and there, because at its core, you know, I think a lot of people agree that the whole free unit thing is just a core anti-RTS design when it's a game based on economy. But not to go too deep into that, in general, right now, the Broodlord doesn't feel like it's fitting the role that it used to have, this like super late game powerful unit that is swarmy for Zerg. It's moving closer to more of it's got that speed buff, right? And so it's not like the ideal. It's not the what's the word I'm looking for? It's not what people like envisioned feeling like a real badass with. It's not giving that power fantasy, but it's also not really a useful unit where it's really been cut down so that I don't think anyone really gets excited by making Broodlords for the vision nor for the actual reality. Like both just don't match right now. So I think the Broodlord has to be just, if it needs to be changed, it's going to have to be, in my opinion, like one of the bigger changes to make it interesting, to make it viable, but not overpowering. Yeah. But, yeah, the idea of Ghost no longer being as massable will help this. And then maybe Liberator not having anything changed still also kind of gets, I'm not going to say indirectly nerfed, that's not right, but a late game Terran army is going to be nerfed because Ghosts are a core part of the late game Terran army, and they are now not as massable. So maybe the Liberators that get included with that Ghost army, you know, the combo isn't there as heavily. Hydralisk dash, name not finalized. They really wanted to pinpoint that because people were complaining. Speed 8 bonus increased. So I already went over this, but to go over it again, I don't like speed buffs. I think there's some serious speed creep that has happened in StarCraft. Little by little, huge jump forward, Legacy of the Void, and then little by little again over the 9 years that Legacy of the Void has been out. So, yeah, but to take away the grand scheme of things, just to focus in on this, they wanted to do this because it was too hard to make use of for many players. We'd like to make this adjustment to try and make the ability more functional and powerful. So, first of all, they get this increase. Second of all, it's now point targeted. So I'm guessing this means like instead of being able to zoom and then spam every which way, you press the zoom button, you click to where the direction you want that Hydra to go, and there's nothing you can do but let that Hydra go to that target location. Like obviously it'll attack on its way, but you can't go, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that, and then pull back. Which is actually a very interesting... Is that actually what they're doing? Isn't that like that's like a entirely unique mechanic if that is what they're doing? Hold on, let me really think about this. Is now point targeted, giving the Hydralisk a move order to the target location. Am I wigging out? Is that actually what it means? That you can't control it once you've activated it? Because I'm trying to think of another unit that does that. I actually really wonder what this means. Somewhat like Blink? Yeah, but obviously Blink is like... I mean, you skip the whole step of it moving. It literally skips. It literally blinks. So it's still not really an equivalent. Oh, I think it just queues up a move to avoid pressing the button and the Hydra staying in place. Okay. Okay, that's probably what it is instead. Yeah. Because the thing I was explaining is like a very different mechanic than StarCraft 2 has anywhere, I want to say. But making it move, so you can't just, you don't have, like, I guess people were activating it, and then, you know, some of the worst players were, like, not moving with it and completely losing out on a very short spell that has a fairly long cooldown. And now at least they'll move. Okay. It probably is literally just that it's no longer a button. It's a button and a click on the map as well. Yeah, that makes so much more sense. I thought they're doing some, like, League of Legends micro something or another. And that would have been a very, very different. But okay, yeah, just helping out on the non-pro scene. So Lurker health is reduced by 10. I see. I was like, what does that change kill shot-wise? And they do say it. So because the Purification Nova is staying nerfed, maybe we'll get into that, I guess, eventually, but it is staying nerfed. They no longer two-shotted Lurkers, which people did bring up and were very concerned about. Obviously, there's a lot of game that happens before and during a Disruptor versus Lurker PvZ. It's not so simple as saying it's a real counter or anything. But yeah, just having it as an option to two-shot instead of three-shot a Lurker is a pretty big deal. So I think this just had to be done. I would have been very disappointed if they didn't do this. But then the Lurker sight is increased from 10 to 11. Sight range being increased, fix an issue caused by Lurkers having identical attack and sight ranges, leading its attack range having slight inconsistencies depending on angle. Oh, I see. Okay. So... wait a minute. I understand that there were inconsistencies, but I mean, don't make it sound like it's not a buff, right? Don't make it sound like it's a bug fix, because it is a buff. I mean, now their sight is the same range as its attack to solve any of these inconsistencies, but now it doesn't have that one weakness that a siege tank does. Siege tank's the most prominent one, where its range is far greater than its sight. And Lurker had that to a very slight degree by one range. And now it doesn't. So, yeah. I mean, it's not that they didn't say that it was a bug anywhere. This is in the patch notes. But still, the way that they wrote it, it's being increased to fix an issue that makes it sound like it's a bug. It is a buff. It's absolutely a buff. You know, if anything, unless those inconsistencies made it attack further than 11, they probably should have just kept the inconsistencies, to be honest. That's my opinion. Obviously, Zerg players are going to be frothing at the mouth about that one, but I feel like, you know, if the Lurker bugs out on some weird range, welcome to video games, I guess. I don't know. It's already, like, a good unit for what it is, I feel like. Although, again, Zerg players might disagree. It has its place, and giving it this match sight to attack under the guise of fixing an issue is like... Anyway. Remove changes. Missile turret salvage change removed, but the sensor tower is still going to happen. The Centaur also had its cost reduced, was it? And then its range reduced, something like that. I just still am not a big fan of the idea of this. There's something in my bones that says you shouldn't be able to salvage a sensor tower either. But nah, I'm not going to die on this hill. Blue Flame change removed. Spine Crawler changes removed. Spine Crawler's risky change. Lead to proxy hatch strategies. yes, true. Slows increasing the strength of 12 pull drone rush. Spine's back old power. Zerg's less reliant on queens. Blue Fame should also not be. Blue Fame should also not be as good. And, they're trying to make sure that Zergs don't feel the need to only go roach-based openings, which Raynor has already commented on this patch, this newest one, and said that he still feels like it's going to reduce options for Zerg and not just be fun. He's not saying it's a balance issue. He's just like, I don't think I'm going to have fun with this race, which I do think is a bit of a conundrum for Zerg, actually. In my opinion, because Terran is the most amazing race ever designed. Terran tends to be, I feel like, as fun across all the levels, especially because you have the option of mech if you're a lower level player. I think Zerg is an extremely obnoxious, frustrating race to play at almost all levels, like unless you're Cero. And that is kind of presented by a severe lack of representation of Zerg on the ladder as a whole. And then I think Protoss actually is a lot of fun to play, kind of in no matter what skill level. But then as far as, can they win with it is a different question. It's just, Anyway, I do think Zerg is going to be the next big problem for overall StarCraft. It's just a very frustrating race to play and convince new people to try out. Nexus, battery overcharge is still removed. The recharge is still there. They're just going over these are now the full updated changelog in case you missed the last one. So I won't go over it again, but yeah, noted what they changed. And they still have the bug fixes and quality of life. It does look like there are more, though, if I recall correctly. I think the Siege Tank and Immortal was maybe the last one. Fixed an issue. Fixed an issue with Changeling Zealot move animation speed. Hydralisk move animation fixed. Graviton Beam could cancel within 0.04 seconds. Huh, okay. Lurker's attack could be canceled when the target leaves range, dies, and other unit is in range. Okay. So there you go. That's the new patch. Which I like that they've backpedaled on quite a few things. I really think the Ghost had to be touched in some way, shape, or form just for the community's sake. And I'm looking forward to how the Mothership performs now that it can't be abducted. Does it make it the best patch ever? Well, who's to ever say what is the best patch ever? But it's better than it was. Actually, I might throw my hat in the ring for best patch ever actually being when battlecruisers got teleport. And I really don't think I'm biased when I say that. I don't actually use battlecruisers all that often, but it created a really fun meta for a little while. And that was a patch where a lot of other things changed. I think that was like the 2019 patch, one of the last ones before everyone left. So obviously they had a little more capacity to really change up the game, and they still had some time to work on it in case everything broke. But that is the type of patch I think people were wanting to see, is the one that just has like 50 changes overall. But we're not going to get that anytime soon. So I'm really happy that they've responded to the criticism, that they're actually updating fairly quickly as well, about a week between the patch updates. And that makes me optimistic for the future. At least that's what I'm choosing to go for. So hopefully this all works out. Thanks for watching.